Hello, I'm David Sandilands. Before this talk is based on kind of my experience working at banks and media companies, where you have the huge advantage of seeing anti-patterns, things left in, and failures to modernise. So we're going to take a tour through. So the first thing is for Puppet is to use the right tools. We provide tools from Puppet ourselves. Vox have their toolkits, and using things like the Puppet Development Kit and using VS Code can help you automate a lot of these steps and also help it kind of point out best practices yourself. One of my very early jobs, I found that 0.x versions of Puppet, they took kind of too long to kind of work as resources. So what happened is some people were making repositories which literally just had one package dependent on everything, and then people just kept copying that pattern. So you don't need to do that, get rid of it. Stages, just don't use stages at all. You end up with these horrible dependency cycles, and if anything fails, everything fails for no reason after it. It was just kind of used in early startups, kind of replicating the flow of the scripts they had, and it just needs needless maintenance. Site.pp and module defaults. So, it was a kind of early thing again to have kind of defaults, either in modules or in site.pp. We have a kind of big statement to say if you do it in modules, those defaults can kind of unpredictably go out. And data types. Now, we're forcing you to use data types in Puppet 8, but it adds a lot of validation and security. And I always say use AI responsibly, but it's one of the things it's actually good at. If you have a whole bunch of parameters you need to add types to, and then check it through. Overuse of templates and content. So standard lib, it may seem like a long time ago, it was 2014, that it introduced the file line, but before that you had to kind of choose to dump a file in or use Augeus. So you kind of ended up with whole files being dropped in when you only want to do a few settings. Params.pp was a very common practice kind of before we got to Hiera 5. We can simplify it a lot and not kind of have huge case statements and just kind of have that more natural data flow. We don't need to inherit from another class, and so just move on. Factor, again, legacy facts are dropped with Puppet 8, and it has taken over a decade. So use the modern facts, use our docs to kind of find alternatives, and ideally use the tools to automatically do it for you. But also with custom facts, we've kind of failed to use some of the features that have been available for a long time. Things like timeouts, having weighted resolutions so you can have different options, confining features to kind of choose to only run it in certain places, and rescue blocks when you have failures. One of the things you may find as well is if you're kind of modernizing from an old Puppet base, is that from Puppet 6, a lot of core types were removed out and put into modules. So you kind of may have that initial kind of fear as you try and go there that suddenly a whole bunch of stuff fails. Roles and profiles, while not strictly an anti-pattern, has this problem that people kind of follow it religiously and don't allow themselves any flexibility. So Chris Allen, one of our PS engineers, was highlighting you can use the parameters with Hiera to be able to knock things in and out so you don't have to make endless roles. And move from ERB to EPP templates. I know people kind of still have ERB templates and they don't want to do it, but EPP is faster, it does not kind of scope as wide, it can do sensitive without unwrapping, and Vox are working on a converter. And sensitive data, again, it's combining the right things to handle sensitive data. So using Hiera YAML to keep data in rest, using the sensitive data type to protect it in the catalog, and using node encrypt for the transport layer. And sensitive templates and deferred functions. So, from Puppet 6.2 and later, we can evaluate sensitive instead of having to unwrap in the template, so remove those unwraps. And, in Puppet 7.17 and 8, deferred functions can be lazily evaluated. And kind of trusted facts and commands are a feature that I don't think a lot of people use at all. We have kind of the Puppet data service, which we kind of worked on in my team previously. And there is a great doc kind of showing you how you can use these things to pull in external data sources. Lambdas, I think it's kind of a dreaded word, and I actually pulled one of James's old examples about how people used to kind of abuse defined types to kind of do these iterations. And lambdas kind of have 17 functions, which creates this confusion, but you kind of only need to look at those kind of top 5 I listed there. Outdated modules. So you can have your code working, you don't want to kind of keep updating your modules, but using the Forge compatibility report, which is available for everyone, you can kind of select Puppet versions, you can look at what happens if I update a module, and it just helps you kind of work that out. Getting rid of unused code in modules. So this is a great Vox tool, Ghostbuster. it helps goes through and find different items of code that are just not used, because trimming down your code can just kind of really ease your maintenance. And finally, why does testing always get left to last? At least add a compile test. You can do that with PDK. With add tests, that will add at least a compile test. Enforce coverage completion. I found that a good way to kind of make people justify why it's too much work. And using once-over and AI responsibly to help you generate some of that testing. Thanks for listening, and have a great lunch.